Hello, welcome to episode 2, and today we're gonna talk about a few things following the episode first. So let's start with something very pleasant, not politically related subject. So let's talk about the most amazing places in Australia. Planning a perfect trip can be overwhelming due to the country's vast size and diversity. Knowing the direction, the priorities, and the most efficient route can make all the difference. One of the most fascinating aspects about Australia is its wildlife. Adding to Australia's richness is the deep cultural heritage of Australia, with a history dating back over 65,000 years. There are several natural pink lakes. Surprisingly, Australia has got the largest population of wild camels in the world. These camels are exported to Middle East. Melbourne, Australia's cultural capital, home to the largest tram network. The city's rich history dates back to its founding in 1835, but it's truly flourishing during the gold rush era of the 1850s. For a deeper dive into history, we can visit Melbourne Museum and the Royal Exhibition Building. Melbourne's sporting culture is legendary, with the iconic Melbourne Critical Ground (MSG) and the Australian Open tennis tournament drawing sports fans from around the world. For a family-friendly outing, we can visit Melbourne Zoo. The best time to visit Melbourne is during the spring, September to November, and autumn, March to May, when the weather is mild and pleasant. This beautiful region is a paradise for wine lovers and those seeking peaceful escapes to the nature. It also offers a culinary scene featuring local produce and gourmet food. Art lovers would appreciate the local galleries and craft markets showcasing the regional creative talents. From intricate pottery to stunning painting, there's a wealth of artistic treasures to discover. Hobart is the charming capital of Tasmania, closer to Antarctica than it is to Perth. Hobart history is deeply rooted in its past, dating back to its founding as a penal colony in 1804. No visit to Hobart is completed without a trip to most Wellington. The mountain's diverse terrain offers opportunities for bushwalking, mountain biking, and even rock climbing. Holborn is famous for one of Australia's many most unique and intact museums, the Museum of Old and New Art. We will experience a mix of contemporary, modern, and ancient artwork in a stunning architectural setting. The next city is Australia's capital, Canberra. The Australian War Memorial is another must-visit, providing a poignant tribute to Australia's military history. Here, we can explore the exhibits which detail the experiences of Australian soldiers and witness the moving last pass ceremony. The Lake Burley Griffin is the heart of Canberra, offering a picturesque setting for a variety of activities. Sydney. Did you know that Sydney's Harbour Bridge is affectionately known as the coat hanger due to its distinguished arch shape? Our adventure begins at famous Sydney Opera House, symbol of Australia and an architectural marvel. It took 14 years to complete its controversial construction, finishing in 1975. Sydney beautiful beaches are must visit, with Bondi Beach being the most famous. Byron Bay, a coastal paradise famous for charm, pristine beaches, and laid-back vibe. Cape Byron Lighthouse offers breathtaking views of the Pacific Ocean. Main Beach invites us with the golden sands, offers a tranquil spot for a swim. The Pass is a hot spot for surfers closing the perfect wave. Okay, and the next is, let's touch up on the subject, what is BRI? So BRI, BRI, known within China as the One Belt, One Road. It's a global infrastructure development strategy adopted by Chinese government in 2013 to invest in more than 150 countries and international organizations. It's considered a centerpiece of the Chinese leader Xi Jinping's foreign policy. The BRI has been compared to the American Marshall Plan. As of August 2023, 155 countries were listed as having signed up to the BRI. Belt is short for the Silk Road Economic Belt, referring to the proposed overload routes for road and rail transportation through landlocked Central Asia along the historical trade routes of the western regions, whereas road is short for the 21st century maritime road, referring to the Indo-Pacific Sea routes through Southeast Asia to South Asia, the Middle East and Africa. The initiative was incorporated into the constitution of the Chinese Communist Party in 2017. The President Xi Jinping administration described the initiative as a bid to enhance regional connectivity and embrace a brighter future. The project has a target completion date of 2049, which will coincide with the centennial of the People's Republic of China, in short PRC's founding. Right, next. Analytic philosophy, philosophy of language. So the outstanding achievement on analytic philosophy in the last third of the 20th century is the philosophy of language, which towards the end of the century blended with the philosophy of mind, as the two research projects increasingly recognized the extent of their interdependence. The linguistic turn, taken in a variety of ways by Frege, Russell, Wittgenstein, positivist, and ordinary language philosophers, all pointed in the direction of the need for a fully systematic treatment of language, and to this, equipped and potentially by the new techniques of logic, analytic philosophy turned its full attention in its period. Let's talk who was Donald Davidson. In 1970s to 2003, he studied classics and literature at Harvard as an undergraduate, but in the course of closing so fell under the influence of Whitehead and switched to the study of ancient philosophy for a master's degree. After war service in the US Navy, returned both to Harvard and to his interest in ancient philosophy, writing his doctorate on Plato. But by the time he completed his dissertation, he had come to know Quine, and his interest shifted again, this time to contemporary work in the analytic tradition. He held posts at Stanford, Chicago, and Berkeley, but traveled widely to lecture and participate in conferences, as his ideas and the ever-growing interest in philosophy of language generally exerted a grip on the world of analytic philosophy. The key idea in Davidson's approach is that a theory of truth is the right form for a theory of meaning. Davidson shared with Quine a commitment to the principle that meaning are not meant entities, that is, objects, states of affairs, concepts, or even just meanings. Davidson wrote, an acceptable theory of truth must entail, for every sentences of the abject language, a sentence of the form S is true, if and only if P, where P is replaced by any sentence that is true, if any, or if only if S is. Next, the philosophy in medieval times, Augustine, 354-430. This is which I wrote. All the writings, by the way, are written in and uploaded on the YouTube channel which you are just listening to. And these are the briefings I wrote from the books. So this is written from the History of Philosophy, A.C. Grayling. And I wrote this in May 2025. So Augustine devoted himself to the philosophical problems that his belief obliged him to address, not least among them the related problems of evil, free will, and predestination. He had been attracted to the philosophy long beforehand by reading Cicero's new lost dialogue Hortensius, or on philosophy, so the difficulties posed by theology were quickly obvious to him. Manichaeism was a movement founded by one Mani or Manes, who lived about a century before Augustine's life. He thought that the universe is the theater of a great struggle between two principles, good and evil, the former being the principle of light, the latter the principle of darkness. One was the problem of evil. It simply stated, if God is good and created the world, how can it contain evil? Augustine set out an answer first. He distinguished between the evil that people do and the evil people suffer. Augustine's view of evil has to be made consistent with the idea that everyone is born sinful because of the fall. In saying that, the evil committed by people in the outcome of the having free will, Augustine has to provide an account of free will itself. An interesting point Augustine makes, however, is that although we speak of past, present, and future, what we mean is the past relative to the present relative to the present, and the future relative to the present. Augustine says that God is an exempt from the relation of time, and moreover, before God made the times, past, present, and future, there was no time. He said, as long as men who don't sin gain happiness. He wrote, the universe is perfect. When sinners are unhappy, the universe is perfect. Right, next. This is a little history of the word. Let's talk about a new word. Interesting story. So Columbus was filled with joy. The end is at last. The friendly people on the shore must be Indians. Now, of course, you know that he was wrong. Columbus was nowhere near India, but on an island of America. The real India, or East Indies, was still an interminable distance away, much further that Spain was behind them. Columbus would have needed to sail on for at least another 2 months, or it's likely that he would have perished miserably within his main and never reached his goal. He couldn't bring himself to admit that his great idea was a mistake, that the earth was much bigger than he had imagined. In 1492, the year is which Christopher Columbus accidentally discovered America only because it was in his way, as it were, that the modern age is set to begin. The date chosen to mark the beginning of the Middle Ages, 476, might seem a more obvious choice. For that was a year when the Roman Empire of the West fell, together with its last emperor, the one with the curious name Romulus Augustulus. The first Spanish ships carrying Columbus and his companions had discovered only islands, whose simple and good-natured inhabitants had little to offer them. For the Spaniards were actually in search of the fabled land of El Dorado. Convinced of its existence, they had visions of whole cities roofed with gold, driven by their greed into even more crazy adventures. They exploited and deceived the natives at every turn. Nothing could deter them. They were brave and cruel, and the saddest things of all is that not only did these men call themselves Christians, but they always maintained that all the atrocities they committed against healthy were done for Christendom. One, Cogurgan in particular, Cortes, was possessed by the wildest ambition. He wanted to march deep into the head of the country and seize all its legendary treasures. In his report to the King of Spain, Cortes wrote, quote, "Here they trade in all kinds of merchandise, in foodstuffs, in jewelry." Next, continental philosophy, and these are just 2 pages. The major figures of continental philosophy is the first half of the 20th century. Husserl, Heidegger, Merleau-Ponty, and Sartre engaged in analytic philosophy would regard as recognizable philosophy. In this latter period, the work of some of those whose names stuck out: Gadamer, Deleuze, Derrida, Ricoeur, Foucault, but not Habermas, become less recognizable as philosophy from an analytic standpoint, and these writers diverge as widely from one another in their concerns as they do from analytic philosophers. The main reason why so little attention is paid to continental philosophy has to be frankly acknowledged. Some continental writers will argue that the problem is language, and these tricks are intended to display the fact. There is an argument to be had here, out in the open. If conceptual frameworks are misleading because of courageous agendas or biasing roots on the assumptions, educated even to those who seek to criticize them, perhaps this is a fact of great importance which requires clarification and correction. If the claim is that language is irreducibly and irremediably misleading, imprecise, clogged beyond recall with the corpses of past beliefs and assumptions, then an announcement to that effect might seem to be a one-time affair. If the claim is true, so we have reason not to accept it. If the historian of recent philosophical or more broadly intellectual history could leap ahead a couple of centuries to see what the work of time has wrong, her choice would be easy. There would be the Aristotles and Kants. That prompts one to say, look around and ask, who are they? Who will be the great ones visible from the future? Have we even heard their names yet? Or at the back of one's mind echo the words of Shelley's Ozymandias, quote, "I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand have sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell what its sculpture will those passions rare, which yet survive, stamp on the lifeless things, the hands that mock them and the head that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, yet nightly in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sun stretched far away." Okay, and the last one. We got philosophy in the 19th century, pragmatism. So, in the last decades of the 19th century, contemporary with the British idealists, a group of philosophers in the United States, Charles Sanders Peirce, the years 1839-1914, and William James 1840-1910, Prominent among them evolved a philosophical outlook to which they gave the name pragmatism. Somewhat later, of this look, John Dewey, 1859 and to 1952. These are the years he lived. Continued the line of thought they proposed and was influential in the period between the First and Second World Wars. The movement thereafter went into abeyance for a time before some of its themes resurfaced in the work of several American philosophers in the last 20th centuries. Pierce recorded how he and some friends started a metaphysical club in the 1870s in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to discuss philosophy. It met either in his study or in that William James and its other members included Sean C. Wright, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., and Nicholas St. John Green, to whom Pierce gives the credit for being the grandfather of pragmatism, because he insists that the group takes seriously the definition of belief given by the philosopher Alexander Bain, and he was a psychologist as well, as the upon which a man is prepared to act. And Pierce wrote a quote: "From this definition, pragmatism is scarce modern corollary." Alexander Bain, 1818-1903, the years he lived, was a Scottish philosopher and psychologist who was one of the first to apply scientific methods in psychology, and was a major influence on William James in this respect. Bain held that it's natural for people to believe that, and that doubt is an uncomfortable condition from which inquiry elaborates them by leading to whom he describes as the serene, satisfying, and happy tone of mind, which is believing. Pierce adopted this view because it fitted well with his opinion that inquiry is a process aimed at correcting and adapting behavior so that it's more effective in the world. And it was written from modern philosophy subject. Okay, thank you for listening, and hopefully you will hear from me in episode 3. Bye!